Hello everyone, my name's Susie James and I'm the Director of Family Services here at Habitat for Humanity, Chester County. We, in conjunction with the USDA, are offering townhomes in the Fuller Meadows development in West Grove. Today I'd like to walk you through all of the documentation needed to submit your application for housing. So when you download the application from our website, which is hfhcc.org, you're going to see not only the application, but a number of other documents that will need to be sent in with that application. So here's the list of items that you'll be seeing in order of printing or downloading. So first you'll see the Housing Assignment Letter Agreement, then the FAQ for the Habitat Homes in West Grove, then it's the checklist of items that you'll need to provide, and then the Habitat Release Form, and then you've got a 10-page uniform residential loan application. That's for the USDA. Then you've got a couple of forms. One is the Authorization to Release Information form, and then an Employment and Asset Certification form. And then you've got the Verification of Child Dependent Care form, lots of forms. Then comes a 2-page credit score disclosure from the USDA, followed by yet another checklist from the Habitat. And then you'll see a 5-page explanation, I believe, of the USDA's Rural Development, Rural Housing Service. Lots of documents to keep track of, and they're all very important in the application process. So let's start at the very beginning. You've got the Housing Assignment / Agreement Letter. So by signing this agreement letter, you promise to complete all of the application procedures and requirements. It also lets you know what the cost of the home is and that Habitat will hold a second mortgage on the property to make the homes more affordable. This second mortgage is payable when and if you sell the property. So that's what this is right here. And let's see if I can move this. All right. The next document is an FAQ for the homes themselves. We're not going to go through each of these line by line. It's information in there so you know how many bedrooms, etc. Is included. So something for you to look through. All right, the next item is the checklist of items that need to accompany the loan application. So the first thing on the item, if you'll notice, is a non-refundable check for $25 made out to the USDA. Don't make it out to Habitat, make it out to the USDA. You can write a personal check or get a money order. Just make sure it's made out to the USDA. There's also a notice there that lets you know what happens when you do send in a check, that they turn it into an EFT. Interesting stuff to read, and also about a fee that could be charged if you have insufficient funds. Make sure you've got plenty of money in your account before you send that check along. All right, so the second item is a signed form RD 3550-1. It's the Authorization to Release Information. And this form itself, you don't have to go to Google and find it. It's actually included in the download. So you will need to complete one of these forms for each adult member of the household whose funds you'll be considering for the loan. So if you're just the applicant, you just have one to fill out. If you have a co-applicant, you'll need to fill out 2 of these, and that is just signing, I believe. All right, so the next is verification of all household income. So here's where you're going to do a lot of copying. You're going to need copies of your last 4 weeks consecutive pay stubs. So make sure you include the very latest that you can get. And we need to ask, and if we need to ask you for more recent information, it's going to delay the process. So make sure when you do send it in, that you've got the most up-to-date stuff there. The second thing is copies of your most recent benefit statement. This would be things like Social Security, public assistance, any retirement income that you have, etc. And then C in there is if you receive or pay any alimony or child support. You'll need to provide 12 months of that payment history, as well as any court orders stating the payment structure. So if that's not available, you should include a copy of your separation agreement or your divorce decree. All right, so now we're not down to number 4. So income taxes. This is a place where lots of folks get hung up. So first of all, it's for anyone that is listed as an applicant or a co-applicant. You need to send both your W-2s and your income tax returns. So make sure that it's both the W-2s that you get from your employer and the income tax returns that you do when you file your taxes. And that's for the last 2 years. So say you're filing or filling out an application now, like in May 2021. You would need your 2019 and 2020 W-2s and your 2019 and 2020 income tax returns. So make sure you've got all that. All right, let's move on to the next page. All right, number 5 is a signed IRS Form 4506T. That is a request for transcript of tax return. So the thing you're going to want to do is copy and paste this URL this URL into your browser to get the document. You can also ask Google to find IRS Form 4506T. Gotta love Google. So this must be filled out for each applicant. So you put in the name, in your name, and then sign the document. The USDA will fill in the rest should they need to use the form. All right, so number 6, this is about your employment history. So for each applicant, you have to provide a written explanation of your employment history of less than 2 years or employment gaps in excess of 30 days within the last 2 years. So, in other words, it says if you have not worked at your place of employment for 2 years, or there was a time when you weren't working at all during those last 2 years, you need to write out an explanation of why there were gaps, or if you haven't been at your current position for 2 years. All right, hope that's not too confusing there. All right, now for number 7. Again, this is for each applicant. You'll need to get your 2 most recent bank statements. And if you're applying near the end of the month, wait until you have that month's statement before sending in your documentation. Remember, you need to send the statement that you would get in the mail, not like the online history. So wait to get your statement and then send that in. Okay, number 8. This is about your credit history. So your credit history is a big factor when applying for a home. You will definitely want to take a look at your credit report before applying. You should get a free credit report by using the link that is shown here in that form. And after you have reviewed your free credit report, you will need to write down an explanation for any late payments, items that may be in collection status, or judgments that are against you, explanations about student loans and when they're going to become due, and how much you would have to pay, and if there's any other things that are derogatory that are listed on your report. So be very, very specific in your explanation, why it's there, what contact you've had with the creditor, what plans are you had to fix it, etc., etc. So a real important part of the process here. So let's see. Now we're going to go on to 9. And this is verification of identity. So if you could please send copies of your driver's license, your birth certificates, and your social security cards. And that would be for your entire family. So make sure that you get those copies and have them with when you turn in your application. So number 10, this one applies to any of your children who are at least 18 years old and are a full-time student. So the USDA is requiring that you include their school transcripts. So make sure you get a copy of those. So that would be for like kids that are in college, etc. All right, so number 11, this is, if applicable, if you have child care expenses for dependents that are 12 years old and younger, you'll need to provide written evidence of those expenses. So this would be bills from the daycare, etc. And all of this information collected can be put on the verification of child dependent care form that's further on down in the packet. And last but not least, if applicable, this is for any applicants that are 62 or older, or for individuals with a disability who wish to be considered for deduction. You'll need to provide evidence of out-of-pocket annual medical expenses for this one. So that's the end of this checklist. Just please remember that anything submitted should be copies, not original documents, as they can't be returned. And if you could use paper clips and no staples, that would make things much easier as well. All right, so next we're going to move on to the Habitat for Humanity release form. By signing this form, it gives Habitat the ability to use your name, your voice, pictures, etc. in any of the promotional documentation that we create. So that could be things on Facebook, YouTube, all those types of things. So if you agree, which we hope you will, you need to sign where it indicates signature, provide the date, your current address, phone number, and your social security number. Okay, next we're going to concentrate on the 10-page application. Here we're looking at page 1 of the application. So in section 1, the only thing that you need to do is make sure that there is a check mark in the box that indicates USDA/Rural Housing Service. That's the only thing you need to do there. Section 2 is easy. You don't have to do anything there. And then in section 3, this is the applicant information. And here you have quite a bit to complete in here. So if you are applying solely on your income, we'll be looking at applicant 1. If you're applying with a spouse or significant other, we'll be looking at both applicant 1 and applicant 2. For the first line in these sections, you'll need to put in your full name as it is written on your driver's license. It's important that your name is written the same throughout all of these documents. And in line 2, we will need you to fill in your social security number, your phone number, and by phone number, we want to have, this would be the best number to use if we need to contact you. Then your date of birth, then how many years you attended school, and remember, if there are 2 applicants, we'll need this information for you both. Right, for line 3, which is right here at the top of the page, you'll check the box that fits your best situation, whether you're married, whether you're separated, or unmarried. Then you will list how many dependents you have and their ages. Now, if there are 2 applicants, this could be different. Let's say I'm divorced and I have 2 children and I am applying with my boyfriend who's also divorced and claims 2 of his children as dependents on his income tax forms. So I would list my 2 children and their ages, and he would list his 2 children and their ages. If you're married and you claim all children jointly, only one applicant puts in the number of children, their names, and ages. Likewise, if you're single or unmarried. All right, so then we move on to lines 4 and 5. That's where you're going to indicate that you rent and put in the number of years that you've rented. Then you write in your current address. If you're living with your parents and not paying rent, make a note of that in the area where you're writing the address. For the next line, line 6, if you have not been at your current address for at least 2 years, you'll need to provide your last address, whether you rented or owned, and for how many years. All right, and again, that's for both applicant 1 and applicant 2. All right, now we're going to move on to employment information. So line 1 here is you're going to put in the full name and address of your employer, the number of months that you have worked there, and also the number of years that you have worked in that profession. Line 2 is you need to put in your position, your title, the type of business, along with the phone number that you have at work. And if you have been there less than 2 years, please fully complete lines 4 and 5. If you're not working but receive Social Security income, make note of this in line 1. All right, down to section 5, which is your monthly income and combined housing expense information. So again, you'll see that there are areas, for both applicant 1 and applicant 2, as well as a combined column. In the top section, it's important to fill out in the top section, it's important to fill out any income that you receive separately. Please note that any alimony, child support, etc. is noted in the bottom section only if you are using that income, along with salaries, as consideration for repaying the mortgage loan. In the combined section, you will need to list the amount of rent you are currently paying. All right. So let's move on to the next page. Assets and liabilities. So the directions here basically say if you have joint accounts, check jointly. And if you have separate accounts, check not jointly. If you have some of both, check both jointly and not jointly. All right, then in the assets section on the left. So line 1, you're going to want to leave blank, but put in all of your checking and saving accounts, fill out the names of the banks, the credit unions, etc. You include your account numbers and the amount in the account. You also need to do the same for any stocks and bonds that you have, any life insurance policies, other real estate that you own, money in retirement funds, net worth of any businesses that you may own. You'll also need to list any cars and trucks that you have with the make, year, and the Blue Book worth. Then on the right side of section 6, you'll find the liabilities section. You may want to run your free credit report before tackling this section because it'll give you a rundown of counts and where they stand. Please make sure you fill this out completely, and this includes all debt, credit cards, car loans, alimony payments, child support payments, etc., etc. There's also a section at the bottom for child care, dues, and that sort of thing. All right. So we're going to go on to the next page, page 4. So this is a continuation pretty much of the assets and liabilities section. So the top chart here is for any real estate owned now or in the past. And then right under that chart is a section where you would need to put any additional names that you've used where you would have credit. For example, a credit card that may have your maiden name on it or a different last name, etc. You'll need to list the same information, the creditor's name, that's the charge card name, auto dealer, and their account numbers. Okay? So down here, section 7 here on the left, you can leave that blank. But section 8 here on the right, this is the declarations. So you will need to complete this section for all applicants, applicant 1 and applicant 2. All right, and they're pretty simple questions. You just run through them and make sure you answer them completely and honestly. Okay, section 9, this is Acknowledgement and Agreement. So you're going to want to read through this. It's a lot of legal type information, but what we actually need you to do here is sign it and date it. And remember to use your name as it appears on your driver's license. Okay? All right. Section 10. Let's see. This is entitled Information for Government Monitoring Purposes. So you will need to read the explanation that's up here in the box, and then based upon that understanding, you'll need to complete the next 4 lines. So nothing else on this page needs to be completed, just these 4 lines here. Your ethnicity, the race, sex, and okay. Next page, additional information required for RHS assistance. So the loan type, you want to put a check mark in the box noted section 502. And if this is a joint application, fill out all of the rest of the lines through number 12. If it's not a joint application, fill out lines 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Lines 13 and 14 are not necessary. All right, so that goes down to 13, 14. All right, so then on the next page, in very small writing, this is it's a list of notices to those who are applying. So you're going to want to read through this. There's things like Privacy Act information, there's unlawful discrimination information, etc., etc. And then we're going to move on to the next page, 8, which is, so here on line 16. When you sign here, what you're doing is acknowledging that you are not able to secure a home loan through regular banks or credit unions, and that all of the information noted in the application is complete and true. So you will need to sign and date section 16. Remember again to use your name as it's shown on your driver's license. And then, let's see, we're going to go on to the next page. So again, page 9 and 10 describe the Privacy Act. So please read through this and understand it as best you can, and then that will be the end of the application itself. As we scroll through here. Now, the next thing that we see here is the authorization to release information form. So this authorization form is a little different than the earlier form we looked at. This one is from the USDA, and it By signing this, it provides authorization to them to verify certain information, like your employment records, your assets, that sort of thing. So you need to print your name on the line that indicates name of customer. Again, making sure it's the same as it is on your driver's license. And then you need to sign it and date it at the bottom of the form. Okay, so we'll go down to the bottom. See, that's where you sign it down there. Again, using your name as it is on your driver's license. And then there are additional 2 pages of information that you need to read through just to understand what this means by signing the form. Okay? All right, the next form is called Employment and Asset Certification. So first we're going to look at this employment certification page. There's another page to it. You'll need to look at each of the descriptions and check and fill out the boxes that are appropriate to your situation. So let's say I'm applying. I'm married, but my husband is not working, but he's looking for work. I would fill out the second box with his full name as it's shown on his driver's license. And when he finds a job, I would let my contact at the USDA know of that change. So just some things to think about. Just read through each of the descriptions and pick out what is best for you. Okay, on to the next page. And this is the asset certification. So you're going to need to complete this one for everyone in your household. Make sure that you use full names. For children without driver's licenses, you would use the name on their birth certificates or their social security cards. The assets to list are noted on the form, and you'll need to list if you've sold any of those assets within the last 2 years. Likewise, let's say I'm currently employed. I am applying by myself. Should my status change, perhaps I got laid off, I would need to contact the USDA with that kind of information. Okay? All right, so the next section is verification of child or dependent care. So I mentioned this form earlier in our video here, and this form is filled out by you and also completed and signed by your child care or dependent care provider at the bottom. Okay, so the remaining documents in this download are things like credit score disclosure. It provides information on the rural development, rural housing service of the USDA. Then there's a listing of frequently asked questions. Some of these are applicable to USDA/Habitat homes, but mostly they're applicable to USDA loans. So if you have any question about any of those items, just contact me and I'll try and help you figure them out. There's also here a document checklist from Habitat. So this is just a checklist of all the needed items that need to be submitted. So when you have something checked or completed, just check it off. Lists always help me, so I'm hoping that this helps you to make sure that you've got everything ready to go for when you want to submit your application. So please do take time to read all of the documentation, and thank you for listening, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. My phone number at the office is 610-384-7993, extension 14, and my email address is Susie, SUSIE, at hfhcc.org. Thank you.